Hey guys, how you doing? I am extremely excited to welcome Tory Christman here today. Hey Tory.
Hi.
Tory,
Hi.
it's so good to see you. How are you today? How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I'm really good.
I've been excited for this one. I want to thank you for coming on because I did a little. So I was doing just the usual research, I mean, you're a polished. You've been doing. How long have you been doing interviews about this topic about Scientology and your life?
Really since
Y-
2000.
y-
And
Yeah.
the ironic thing is when I woke up in 2000, I had actually called the people who were going to help me, Stacy Brooks, Jesse Prince, and Bob Minton, who had the Lisa McPherson Trust. And I called her and I said, look, I'm not going to speak out. I'm not going to make videos and I'm not going to pick it. I'm just leaving under the radar. And she said, okay, I'm just doing for you what I wish someone had done for me, which is they flew me from LA to Tampa.
I was thinking, one of the things I was thinking when about this interview, I was thinking that it doesn't seem like anyone leaves, like no one leaves Scientology like by just, it seems like by walking out the door. It's always this like dramatic, tense. Yeah, it's like this tense thing. I mean, that's what your experience was like, huh?
Well, the ironic thing is they used to send me out to handle the critics. Let me just clarify a couple of things
Yeah,
for anybody
yeah.
here. I was in for 30 years. Hi, Solomon. I was in for 30 years and I escaped out and I was chased across the country and I've been speaking out for 24 years. So
And
I really didn't think they did that kind of stuff. I really didn't. They'd send me out to handle the critics
hmm,
for years. And I really thought, they're just liars. They're reading
hmm.
false information on the internet. It's not true. Until the day I went to leave. And Bob Minton said, I'm going to have a electronic ticket for you. This was in 2000. I didn't know, I'd never even heard of electronic tickets. And he said, we'll have it at LAX. Just get a van and go there. So I said, okay. So I set up the van thinking, I'm a Scientologist. This is LAX. I'm a Scientologist. By the time I got to Tampa Airport, I was an activist against them. They made me into an activist.
I've heard that before. I mean, that's it, even in my own career too. It's often that, yeah, somebody it's an external action. Like you said, they made you an activist, and now look, it's you've been out 20. By the way, it's your anniversary, right? 24 years.
24 years, over 900 videos. I have 5 million views on my YouTube site and 25,000 subscribers. And I invite anybody here, if you haven't subscribed, come by my YouTube site, Tory Magoo 44, and subscribe. Because Scientology hates that. They hate when my subscriptions go up. They do.
Yeah, I mean, and they don't get too much. Once in a while I'll peruse some of their just whatever they have online, and it's just yeah, there's not. It doesn't look like anyone updates the sites,
I
and
know.
you know, I mean,
In an eternity. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe for people who are just coming in who are new to this, maybe if you want to just tell people how did you get into it? What was it about Scientology? You and I had a conversation outside of this about just I remember we kind of talked about this briefly. So what was it about Scientology? You know.
Okay, so couple things I want to make clear. When I got in, it was in 1969. There was no internet. So people that think, how could you be so stupid? Why wouldn't you just look on the internet? There was no internet. So the only thing you could do is talk to suppressive people. And if you talk to them, then you get declared suppressive, which means you're one of the most evil people on the planet. Just so you know, Eric, here we go. There we
Yep.
go. Declared
Yep.
suppressive.
Yep.
Tory
Yep.
Bazazian, that was my married name, declared.
Yes.
So, okay, it
Love it.
was 1969. I'm in college and I was in and out of college. I was a hippie, then I went back to college. I was just like doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm back in college because I got sick up in Haight-Ashbury. So my parents flew me back home to Chicago. and I'm in college, and my grandfather was a doctor, so I wanted to be a doctor. So I thought, okay, I can do that. Because I used to go out at night with him. That's why I have Midnight with Magoo, because I'm a
Oh, cool.
night owl. And I used to say to him, come wake me up if you have somebody you have to go to. So he'd say, all right, come on, get up. And I'm like a fireman because of my brothers. I have 2 older brothers, and they were always like, we're leaving in 10 minutes. Either you're ready or not. If you're not ready, we're out of here. And so I'm just like, I can get dressed in 5-10 minutes. I'm ready from head to toe. So my grandfather would say, all right, let's go. And I'd get dressed, and I'd go. So now I'm in college. I want to be a doctor. And I realized these kids from high school brought me this Dianetics book and gave it to me. And I only read like 3 chapters of it, but it talked about clearing people. And I believed it at the time. And I thought, okay, this is a lot easier than being a doctor. I'm never going to make it through 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, internships. You know what? And I had an argument with my dad, and he said, you know what, go to bed. And it was 10:30. And I said, Dad, I'm in college. Leave me alone. And my dad was really a cool guy, but he was very strong. That's why he died at 51. So my YouTube site is Tory Magoo, because I used to call him Mr. Magoo because he has little eyes like me. Yeah, like little teeny eyes. And he was funny on TV. He was a broadcaster. He was originally a football player. He's in the Football Hall of Fame. There he is, 44.
Wow.
So it's Tory Magoo, 44. So in honor of my dad. But anyway, now I'm back in college, and I think I have an argument with him. He goes, go to bed. And I said, Dad, I'm in college. And he goes, it's 10:30, go to bed. It's our morals or no school. So I wrote on my mirror in the bathroom, your morals or no school, screw you. And I packed my bags. And my dad, I would never say that to him, but I did there. And I packed my bags, and I hitchhiked in 1969 from Chicago to LA. And that is long distance for anybody who knows. I mean, it takes a long time to fly here, but to hitchhike, I mean, it was amazing. But anyway, that's what happened. I wanted to be an auditor.
That the trip out here alone, that sounds like that was quite a story.
Yeah.
Just coming out. So when you got out here, how did you get started, or what was the first? Do you remember the first day, or what your first real introduction was?
I absolutely do.
Yeah.
A couple things for anybody. If you haven't read this book, get this book and read it. It's called Blink, and it's about your very first instincts. And my very first instinct with Scientology was they had huge pictures of L. Ron Hubbard all around. I was going to American St. Hill because it said St. Hill, England in the back of the book, or American St. Hill in LA. So I thought, all right, I'm going to LA. So I looked at the photographs and I thought, God, he looks like Adolf Hitler. And then they were all marching around in these military uniforms. And I'd been fighting the Vietnam War for 2 years up in Haight-Ashbury. So I thought, I'm not really pro-military. And they were super organized, and I was a hippie. So I was just sort of like, this is really looking weird. And my friend had said, just go in and ask for John Hildebrand. He's on the big course. So I said, okay, I want to talk to John Hildebrand. He's on the big course. And they said, you can't. He's on course. He'll call you at 10:30. So I hitchhiked. My friend gave me a place where I could come out in the valley and stay. So I hitchhiked there, got stoned. We're laughing. We're like, hippies never did stuff that they'd always say they were going to do it, but they'd never do it because they were stoned. So we're stoned and we're like, yeah, right. He's going to call you at 10:30. But he did. And it's a great lesson for someone. If somebody says you're going to do something, do it. So he called me and he goes, this is John Hildebrand. And I said, okay, I'm trying to act really straight. And he said, what's your address? I'm going to come out there and get you. And so I said, okay. And I gave him the address. And he did. And again, we thought, okay, he's not going to come out here at 10:30 at night. No way. He did. He came at 10:35 or 10:40. He was there. And he drove me all the way back to Asho. And out there in those days in 69, it was so crowded. There were tons of people lining the block outside after course, just talking with each other. they were all on the briefing course, which David Miscavige, who runs Scientology now, has canceled. But that was one of their big courses. And so we sat in the car. He bought some beer. I thought, well, he can't be all bad. He drinks beer. And, that was my level of like good or bad.
Yeah.
And then he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't like those big pictures. And he said, yeah, we don't either. Don't worry about it. That's just Hubbard. And I said, well, the Sea Org look kind of weird too. And he said, yeah, don't worry about it. We don't like them either. Not that we don't like them, but that's not our thing. We're auditors. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, that's what I want. That's what I came for. I want to be an auditor, which is like a counselor, right? So he said, all right, well, let's go meet the auditors. And that was it. I remember the exact second I turned off my critical thinking. I remember looking at this guy and thinking, I don't care what these people do. I want to be one of them. And back then they were like doctors and professors and really smart people and fun and musicians. And, they were just like very creative and cool people. And so it was sort of like a whole different world than it is now. It's very different.
I'm very interested in that. I remember we were talking about that when I saw you last, and I was that's very interesting to me because you provide a really a nuanced, I think, perspective. And I guess I might as well just ask, what is that, and when did that change? Why is it different now? I mean,
it basically evolved over the years. It was like Hubbard, you have to get, was doing research. That's what we were told. He was out on a ship, basically hiding from the IRS, but we didn't know that. And so they said he was doing research. And at the time, we're hippies. So this was sort of like a lot of people were, not everybody, but a lot of people were. So the evolution to he's doing research to clear, because his goal was to clear planet Earth, to get everybody clear. So it was sort of like, okay. And as things didn't work, he would come up with the next thing. And it was just sort of like, and I swear to God, my ex-husband, because his parents got in 1950. And originally there was a thing, well, that doesn't matter. He has a big scrapbook from his mother that she gave him of handwritten letters from LRH saying, thank you so much for your $10,000. I'm so sorry X didn't work, but I'm coming out with Y. Do you know what I mean? This was like letter after letter after letter. It was like, I'm so sorry this didn't work, but I'm coming out with that. And everything did sound, you could see where someone would go, well, I can see it. It's sort of like, okay, he's researching, right?
Yeah.
So I forget what your original question was.
No. It's like, I don't.
You have to remember it because I can't.
Yeah.
I have epilepsy, for anybody that doesn't know. And Scientology made me get off my medicine. I joined the Sea Org, and then I ran out of my medicine, and they said, okay, you have to go see the MLO, which is the medical liaison officer, which was an 18-year-old kid, totally medically untrained, who said, you have to get off your medicine. We're the Sea Org. We don't take medicine. And so I believed him, and I was like, okay. And he said, we're going to use Dianetics and CalMag, and we'll get you off your medicine. And he just sounded so like he knew what he was doing. I went, okay. And so I did try to get off my medicine, and I had so many grand mal seizures. My mother said, Tory, they're going to kill you. These people are going to kill you. And remember, my grandfather was a doctor, so I think she was coordinating with him. And finally, one day she called me and she said, how was your date? And I said, what date? And she said, okay, that's it, Tory. Either you're on your medication today, and your doctor, who is L. Ron Hubbard's doctor, calls me today and says, you are back on your medication. Or I, your mother, am going to fly from Chicago to LA. And believe me on this, Tory, L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology will never forget your mother. And I never forgot that. And it's like, first of all, who wants to have seizures anyway? If you've ever seen a seizure, they're awful. So it was like, good, now I have an excuse, right? Now I'm on my medication, I'm not having seizures, and I can keep doing Scientology, which I had to fight them for 30 years. And if I'm out, the main the number one probably reason I'm out is because of how they treated me with that. But it's
just,
also,
yeah.
I saw their dark side.
Oh, absolutely. It is absolutely mind blowing. I was telling my mom, by the way, well, absolutely. I know she's going to love that story you just told. And I know she's watching now, and it's like,
Oh, good.
and she would, what a great, there were people looking out for you. I mean, that's
Right. She was.
So, yeah, she was.
It's very important. If you're a mother or you're a father and your kid is in any abusive relationship, I cannot say it enough. Speak out. Do something. Think of my mother. I mean, I get chills. I literally have, my hair is standing on end just thinking of if she hadn't done that. She's right. I would have been dead. This other guy who had epilepsy did get off all of his medication. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, but it's just like, if she hadn't done that, and we weren't like real good friends at that time, but she jumped on it. She said, "You're my daughter." You know what I mean? They're not going to kill you. No. I don't care. You know what I mean? I talk to people all the time and they go, "Oh, my kid is in Scientology, or my parents are," and I go do something. You can't just sit back and think they're going to come out. They're not going to come out. You have to do something.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I get really passionate, but
as you should.
I know.
And thank you. I mean, and people who haven't been in that, they don't know the kind of courage that it takes. I don't know that it took for you and your mom to for you to get out. And
that was a whole different story. But just getting on my medication was great, and that turned them against me. So I was now a degraded being. That's how they looked at me for 30 years. And so, different people helped me. My husband, I married my husband, and he was really cool. He was great. He was born in it.
Wow.
Anyway, he was great. I'm sorry he's still in it. I really am, because, yeah, he stayed.
I wasn't aware. So he's still
in it. And he won't watch my videos. He won't watch this. They can't, or they'll be declared suppressive.
Such a just thinking, like, I'm just trying to, like, I'm imagining these electronic devices. I always forget to silence my phones before these, even though I shouldn't forget by now. I've been doing enough of these.
I unplug mine.
Yeah.
Now I lost my phone. See, I still have a cell phone, and I have these one, and that one used to ring, but during interviews. But I have that for journalists. That's why I have that phone. Because in the old days with cell phones, you only had so many minutes, and then it would run out. So now, with this phone, with my old phone, I could talk to journalists forever because it's plugged in.
I love it, and that's what we're doing here.
People always go, "Oh my God, she has that weird phone," and it's like, I do, but I keep it. Like today, I lost my cell phone, and I was like, "Where the hell is it?" And I couldn't find it, but I can always call it with that phone. See, even for that it's worth it.
Very, very resourceful. I do the same thing. So the moment when it was the medication, that was the moment. Was that the moment where you were like, I'm gonna leave? That's it?
No, God, no. That was in 1972. I woke up and escaped out in July of 2000.
What was it at that time that was like, I'm done? What was the impetus, or that for you to leave?
Well, I had a couple of things. One was that I was on OT7. Scientology is like a triangle, and I was like at the second to the top. OT8 is the top. My husband's OT8, totally screwed up. I was on OT7, didn't work at all, and when I left, L. Ron Hubbard said, he sent me a letter and said, handle epilepsy in the HGC, meaning it's professional auditing, whereas I was co-auditing before. But now he wanted me to handle epilepsy, and then you can come back in the Sea Org. So that was really my goal for a long, long time, was to get back in the Sea Org. So but this is why I forget things because of the seizures. And then, but you know what DOA pointed out to me? He said, you know what, Tory, you only need one word and then you're back. So you just have to remember, because I'm like a tree, and if I get off onto a branch and then a limb, I can't remember where I was. But if you remember the one word I was talking about, then I can remember it. Yep. So what was I talking about?
You know, I actually my mind is always in a million places.
Yeah, you're going. I can see it. See, when I give talks, I say to someone with a good memory has to remember what I'm talking about. And somebody in the chat can do that. That's what I do with my chat. It's like somebody in the chat.
I think it was when you left.
What was it?
Oh, we're talking about the impetus that for you to finally leave. It was a few things that happened.
So
I did it.
Oh, so I was telling you OT7 didn't work. Right. Thank you. So that helped. So OT7 didn't work for 7 years. I mean, nothing. I had not a win on it. And
that's why it's called OT7. Sorry. I did. No. I got one little punchline. No, please go ahead. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So I was on it for a long, long time. And it wasn't working. And now my auditor, which is like a counselor, and he was my best friend at the time, said, this is in the 90s, and the internet had come around. And he said, look, you know, some really severe stuff is happening to our church on the internet, and we need you to help us. And I said, really? And he goes, what can I do? You know, I was always willing to help them. So I said, what can I do? And he said, well, we just need you to go walk in and open up a phony account. And I said, for what? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. And I said, why not? And he said, because if I tell you, they will get you in deposition, which is really what the church does, and keeps you in deposition. Hubbard said, get him in court, keep him in court, bankrupt him. That's a quote from L. Ron Hubbard. So he was saying that's what the critics do. And they would get me in deposition, and he said, you don't want that. And he knew me, you know, from being my auditor for years. So I said, no, I don't. And he said, so I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, and just go open the account, give it to me. I'll handle the rest. But believe me on this, these are evil people. They're hurting our church. That's what I'm going to do. I said, okay. So I went in, I got it opened up. I come back, and he has a grin. Like, let's say his grin is normally like this big. Well, that day it was like as big as a house. You know what I mean? He was like so happy. And I said, what? And he said, you just changed the history of the internet by doing this. And I said, okay. You know, again, you have to I didn't know what was going on the internet. I didn't know what he was doing on the internet, but I trusted him. So there you go. So then he goes, okay, now we're going to open up more of these. So we opened up like 10 of them. So we had like 10 different accounts. And he learned how to just basically manipulate people. And his 3 goals were distract off of anything Scientology didn't want known, divide and conquer, get people fighting with each other, because that's a huge distraction. And if you can't get those 1 and 2, just slime the area with a bunch of shit. That was it. True. Sorry for your mother.
Oh, no. It's just this perspective that's invaluable. And that was that's like
that was in the 90s.
The 90s. And what was that like for you
to
didn't
answer your question about how did I wake up? So that was the beginning. You know, it was sort of like, okay, I'm opening these phony accounts. Originally, they're flying me around opening these phony accounts. My husband knows nothing of this because I had to sign a thing saying I wouldn't tell anyone, even David Miscavige or RTC. And I looked at Yachty, and his name was Bill Yachty. And I said, look, this is like the Guardian's office shit. And he said, Tory, trust me on this. You know me. I wouldn't do anything illegal. And I did know him. And I thought, okay, that's true. So I signed it. But I had to pay $100,000 if I told anybody, including David Miscavige, RTC, any auditor, any ethics officer. So I said to Bill, what about me? What if I have something where I need help? And he goes, Tory, we have the best auditors on the planet that'll help you. So I trusted him. Do you know what I mean? And so they're flying me around. I'm opening these accounts. He's handling the internet. I don't know anything about it, but it's getting weirder and weirder. And you have to get, I grew up in Chicago around the mafia. And I'm thinking, these guys are really acting mafia-like. And that guy Gavino, who ran the thing from OSA, looked like, I mean, even though he was skinny and most mafia guys are fat, but he was Italian and he just acted like a mafia guy. And I thought, it's not beyond Miscavige to pay a mafia guy to kill one of these, like Andreas, right, with the big website. Andreas has a website, xenu.net. So anyway, there's that. They start getting weirder. I'm not looking at the internet at all. I'm not reading it. I'm opening those accounts, but I'm not posting or reading or anything. And finally, I decide I have to go look and see what's going on. And everyone that's reading this, you're used to the internet with websites and stuff like this. But this was back in that day, everything was linear. So it was just one alt-religion Scientology. And their goal was if someone wrote at the top, L. Ron Hubbard's a liar, they had to push it down the page and over onto the second page. And their view was no one reads the second page, which isn't altogether wrong. But pushing it down, the day I went and looked, I finally thought, I've got to look. I've got to look at this and see what's happening on the internet. So I looked, and the day that I looked, thank God, all of the Scientology OSA had posted baking recipes. So it was all this how to bake chocolate cake, how to bake cupcakes. And you see how that would drive any bad topics down. But in between it were critics saying, I didn't say that. Scientology is changing my word. Now, I'm a free speech advocate. Yeah. So I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm not doing this. So I call up Yachty and I say, you know what? I have to go back to work. I can't do this anymore. I have to go back to work. And he goes, okay, no problem. Just meet us at this apartment in Glendale. So I think, okay, I trust the guy. I meet him in Glendale. I walk in. It's super dark. It's sunset. It's all men. They're all big guys. I grew up around big men, and I'm sort of like, okay, I know all these guys. They're usually like, Tory, hi. Now they're all like this, hello, hello, hello. And I'm like, hello. And I'm all of a sudden I sit down and I realize there's 6 men and me, 1 woman. And I'm like, this isn't a good situation. And they're not smiling. And Bill isn't there. So I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? And all of a sudden, and you have to get, I'm really a true believer at this point still. I mean, I really think there's a thing Margaret Singer writes about the true believer, and Steve Hassan, I think, does too. But it's, it's someone who's totally 100% in, right? And I'm still 100% in. I'm just, I can't do this thing with the phony accounts, but I've got to get that to work. That's it. So that night is really the night I left Scientology. Bill Yachty comes in, bam, the door slams open. And he comes running in with Gavino. And Gavino looks at him and he goes, I warned you about her. I warned you about her. And this is my best friend. And I'm like, he warned you about what? I know it has to do with epilepsy. It always fucking did. And they wouldn't let me on the ship. We have to check and see about your medicine. It's like everything in my life was like evolved. They wouldn't let me on OT4 because we've got to check and see. And again, it was like a 15-year-old kid that's saying this. And I went like this, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? I did the taxi cab.
Travis Bickle. Yeah.
Yeah.
The taxi driver.
So anyway, I had it. So when he said, I warned you about her, I was so ticked off. And Yachty wouldn't tell me. He went on his side. And they all started just grilling me like I was some criminal. And what are you going to say to these people? And I said, nothing. I mean, honestly, I swear to God, to this day, I had no plans of speaking out, saying anything, nothing. I was just going to leave and get back to work. That was it. And, continue in Scientology. But that night, they changed me. My whole true believer thing cracked. And I finally burst out crying after 2 hours of them yelling at me and grilling me. I just ran out the door and Bill came running after me and I went, get away from me, get away from me. And I jumped in my car And he's like, Tory. And I was like, no, done. I mean, it was like done. I'm done. I'm out. That's it. I still took about 3 more months to actually fully wake up, but that was really the night that everything cracked.
That was it right there.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. A lot happened, but it was that, and specifically the concept of free speech, which you talk about, is so important to you. That working on these sort of information campaigns, or and doing my due diligence, I'll always say that, like, well, you know, I'll do that at the end, but like, it's as someone who I've worked in. Not just being a journalist, but I've worked as an analyst in the sort of like for an NGO. I've investigated disinformation operations, usually by foreign, sort of some of our adversaries, and I've been really interested.
What's an NGO?
A non-governmental organization, a nonprofit, like organizations that work for the pub. We try to work for the public good, that kind of thing. Sorry, to be more specific. So I primarily worked on like domestic terrorism and like people who try to hurt this country from within, and like January 6th type investigations. But
cool.
Yeah, it's interesting work. And I the reason I brought it up was because when I was reading about what you just talked about these fake accounts, I mean, that's amazing, because that's like it's now in the public sphere, like especially from, not to go off track, but it just reminds me of stuff like the Internet Research Agency would do, like in the 2016 election, like opening fake accounts, trying to, and I was like, wow, like that's like, I don't,
and I can personally speak to any of these organizations and say, look, this absolutely happens. I did it. You know, Wikipedia used to call me all the time and say, okay, this is happening with Tom Cruise. What's the backstory? And I would tell them, or John Travolta, or the church, or whatever. And we would talk. And finally, I started watching Wikipedia, and I said, look, they're editing, they're covertly editing Wikipedia. And one of my friends had put up a little website on me, and it was like, let's say it was this big, and it was like slowly getting, much less and less and less. And same for Hubbard, Miscavige. They were changing it from him, things that were really creepy that he did, to all of a sudden that's gone. And I kept telling the guy every time, look, they're covertly editing it. You guys need to look into this. So finally he called me after many years, and he said, okay, we're going to do an investigation on this, and we want you on the board. I said, no. And he said, why not? And I said, because if you decide, and I know you will, that they are covertly editing Wikipedia, they will say the whole thing's negated because Tory is a declared suppressive, and that negates everything. So the whole thing's wiped out. So you guys do your investigation and then call me afterwards. So they did, and they have a DVD. They invited me to the premiere of it, and I watched it. And in the middle of it, it says some people are trying to covertly edit Wikipedia, and it has this big circle with a giant red X, Church of Scientology, and they said they're not allowed to edit Wikipedia. And everybody cheered, it was really great. And so at the end, I said to the guys, and I mean this, I said, if you need anybody, they ever try to take you to court saying that's not true, I am your person. I tell them the story about the phony accounts, and you could hear the pin drop. It was like 200 people in the room, that you could hear a pin drop. Everybody was like, I can't believe she's saying this, but I did. And there you go. So I said, I'll always back you up. And they thanked me. They came over. It was really great.
Oh, it must have been. It's fascinating to, it's fascinating to hear that perspective, and just this, as someone who's very interested in, like I said, and I mean, that's an issue with Wikipedia today. Like, people are always, Scientology aside, people are always trying to get their company on there and edit bad information out.
Right.
And they do a pretty good job, I got to say, on that website now. I mean, of catching that.
Good. Good.
I don't know. Yeah. I guess.
Well, my website, the guy that I had given all that information to, I said, look, my website is now like a paragraph. So can you please put up a real website on me? And he said, Tory, you have to have a lot of, references to do that. I said, I do. I've been doing interviews for 8 years. Go look around the internet. So he's got I've got a full website, and he locked it in so they can't, edit it out, even though they'll probably try now. Go ahead, Scientology. They're waiting for it.
You're a free thinking person. I'm very interested in that. I guess that it's interesting to me that you were in just from the beginning. It's given how I know you outside of here, that you said yourself how much you value free speech, but I guess it's just an interesting kind of like dichotomy or whatever the word is that you were ever in to begin with.
It's mind control, and people have to understand that. I tell people all the time, because they go, I would never do that. Well, cult experts flew in to interview me, and they said, first of all, you're the first happy ex-cult member we've ever met. But I had spent 10 years reading books because OT7 didn't work. So I'd started going to bookstores and reading philosophy, religions, all kinds of stuff, and realizing there's great information in these books that is not Scientology that'll really help you. Like Blink or the 4 Agreements. That's another one that I tell people, if you're having trouble in life, get the 4 Agreements and read it and use it and keep it next to your bed.
So during time in Scientology, so you were able to go out and have some access to information like books that were not related to Scientology. Like did you have more freedom because you were higher up, or?
No. People get that misunderstood all the time. There are 2 sides to Scientology as far as many things. There's training and auditing, but there's also public and Sea Org. Now, the Sea Org are the guys that most people hear about because more videos are made about the Sea Org and the kids that grew up in the Sea Org and that kind of thing. I was not that. I was a public. I joined by myself. Nobody got me in. I read a book and joined. That's why they're always trying to sell books, because Hubbard was like, sell them a book. They'll join. And I can't say it doesn't work, because it did for me. But the point is, because I was public, I could do all kinds of stuff. I had my own job. We lived in my own house. It was like I was a mother. I was, I did a lot of things. And because of epilepsy, I never felt like I was totally in Scientology. I always felt like they have the bridge to total freedom. And I always felt like I was on the bridge next to the total freedom, because people would come up to me all the time for 30 years. Are you still on your medication? How could you be a Scientologist and be on medication? And I'd be like, well, there's a little thing that Hubbard said, and some critics really don't like this, but I loved it. Because it helped me take my medicine. And he said, if it isn't true for you, it isn't true. That was it. That was my reference. You have a grand mal seizure, and then come talk to me about my medicine.
It's just amazing. I mean, did you, maybe a dumb question, but did you meet Hubbard, spend much time with Hubbard?
I didn't meet him. No, I met Miscavige briefly. I didn't really meet him. He came into the sandcastle where all the OT7s were, ripped everything off the walls, said the party's over. You guys are, having way too much fun. And that's it. We're after doctors, dentists, chiropractors, professionals, and you're going to start looking professional. You're going to cut your hair so you look different. Like one of my friends, Billy McCall, had a ponytail, and he always audited celebrities. And so he made him cut his hair. We thought that's so stupid, for a lot of us, we could, when you get to the top and it doesn't work, you can start seeing things, it's different. It's just different. You know what I mean? It's just different. Like they had an event we had to go to on OT7, mandatory event. Everybody goes. We go in. They start it up. Miscavige starts it up. And here's these 3 Buddhist monks come up on the stage. And they say, we decided L. Ron Hubbard is Buddha. And because of TR3. TR3 is repeating the same question until you get your answer. And in Buddhism, they don't have that. So that's why they decided L. Ron Hubbard was Buddha. And we all left. This is OT7s. All of us left saying somebody paid those guys a lot of money to get that done. Actors. We knew they weren't Buddhists, because Buddhists wouldn't say that.
Right.
We knew it. It was like bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Funny.
It's a very big dichotomy because you're in a cult, but you don't know it. You're like starting to think. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But thinking is very looked down on in Scientology. He had the know to mystery scale. The knowingness is up here. Just know it, Eric. You know it. You know what's right. You don't need to think about it. Thinkingness is way down here. Now, think of the great thinkers in the world, scholars, things like that. It takes a lot of thinking, so that was one of the things that helped me wake up. I bought a book and they said, list out the top 50 people that you respect. So I listed out, Martin Luther King and different people that, were like writers and musicians and different things. And at the end, I looked at it and I went, oh my God, not one of them is a Scientologist. That was freaky. Really freaky.
It is amazing, isn't it?
It's got to be for you. It's like, God, how weird.
I mean, I'm going to be magnanimous to say, well, it's important in this part of my job and say that the church or any representative of the church is welcome to my info is public, and I've reported on them before. So if you have any sort of comment, you're welcome to send it to me. And I value it's in my X profile, but like I said, they have my email because I've reported on Scientology. So you're welcome to respond to this interview, and I take every as do you. I take every perspective seriously. So now that I got that little thing out of the way, which I was going to do at the end, no, I like to hear from. I value from anybody. I value a thought from anybody. But you're right, Tory. I mean, you can see it in my. I don't look at the chat much because I get easily distracted. But if there's anything interesting, and shout out to my mod SPTV Tattoo Warrior who keeps the chat civil. Barb, hello. Tory, I see you looking. I hope everything's okay in that chat, which I'm not.
No, it's just Tattoo Warrior is asking me a question. And then you got rid of your episode with OT7. You were going to get declared. I'm not sure. I guess he's saying something, but it's kind of long. I've watched or heard this story probably 25 times, and it never gets old. I'm still marveled by one of the great things. That's so sweet. That's very sweet. It's true. I have told it over and over. And Al Gore, I've been trying to remember that guy's name forever. But he, for anybody of any age, I'm going to write it down so I don't forget it again, because I keep forgetting his name. Anyway, he was an environmentalist who I watched him, and he would go give speeches. And I thought, God, he's giving the same speech over and over and over. But I realized talking to people, it takes a lot of times of telling something for people to actually get it. Yep. It's like people will sit down with me and go, oh my God, I thought you posted on the internet. And I did. I made 4,000 posts in 2 weeks right before I woke up. That was the final thing of me waking up. But I didn't read the internet. Do you see what I mean? I was too afraid to read it. So I just went on there and made these like really bullshit posts. And there was a guy named Phil Scott who was a critic. And I'd say, let's do a fundraiser for Phil Scott. He's going to Hawaii and we can get flippers for him. And, it was just sort of like stupid stuff that put my name there. But my view was, if I could I felt like the critics are like cowboys, like all the people, all you people on here, they're still the same way. They're like cowboys, the old cowboys, where they could do what they wanted. They can ride into town, say what they wanted, shoot who they wanted, and then leave. That's it. And I thought, if I can put myself in with the critics or the cowboys, maybe someone will help me. And that was my view in June of 2000. And I put my name in there and started making these phony posts, and everybody got pissed off at me. They're like, "Fuck you, Magoo." Sorry about to your mom,
No,
but
that's,
it's like you don't know what you're talking about, and they all thought I was a guy. He's this and he's that, and don't even waste your time listening to him. So I was literally almost going to turn off my computer and just leave. I was ready to. And then this guy from Sweden, this is why I always say you never know what you might do that could change someone's life. Right. This guy, Stein Arne from Sweden, made a list of who were the most looked at, or they made the most posts on ARS. And I'm looking at him, thinking nobody's reading mine because they're not answering them. And they're all saying I'm an idiot. And the number one was Tory Magoo. And I thought, they are reading them. So that kept me going. And so then I met Andreas, who had www.xenu.net. He lives in Norway, or he did. He just passed away this year. Hi, Andreas. But anyway, he sent me, let's see, how did it go? He sent me a thing saying, no one can understand what you're saying. You need to format what you're saying. And I didn't know what format meant. But what would happen was I just knew how to copy paste. And in between it had like Eric and then Tory. And Eric and Tory. But in between it were all these arrows. And I think, who needs all these stupid arrows? And I'd erase them, right? And then I'd copy paste it. So it was just all you and me, what we said all together. So he showed me how to format it. And
no, please.
Well, that was the major thing. I thought this is supposed to be the evilest guy on the planet, and he's helping me. He taught me how to format. Bill Yachty didn't teach me how to format. Nobody in Scientology did, but this guy did. So my mom taught me, if somebody helps you, write them a thank you note. And they had that little blue link, which is the email. And you have to know how scary it is in Scientology. You can never, ever, ever talk to a suppressive person. So Andreas was one of these, suppressive person. So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I literally went like this. Can anybody see me? I'm in my house all alone, right? But I'm still kind of, maybe they're looking through the windows or something. I don't know. But I finally click on it and I go, dear Andreas, why do you have up this horrible stuff about me? Or no, dear Andreas, thank you for helping me, Magoo. And he wrote back and he goes, dear Magoo, you're welcome, Andreas Heldelin. But he had his full name, his full address, his phone number, his cell phone number. And I thought, wow. Now here's a guy that is the evilest guy on the planet that we think, Scientologists. But he's totally transparent. And Scientology, at that time, Bill Yachty said to me, don't call me Bill on the phone. I'm Jack. And I'm going to call you Katie. And I go, why? And he goes, because these guys are really evil. They probably have your phone bugged. And so, we're going to, so, they were doing all this hiding secret, phony, all kinds of stuff. So I thought, here he is, the evilest guy on the planet, but he's totally transparent. So anyway, he was the one who helped me wake up. There were a couple of communications. He said to me, I'm going to say them now because they're really important. I said, why do you have up all this shit about my religion? And he said, dear Magoo, I believe in truth. I believe in looking at both sides, and I believe in having the courage to say what I think. I don't think Scientologists are bad. They're just misinformed. I suggest you start reading. Now, remember, I hadn't read anything on the internet, and I wanted to go back in the Sea Org. So I look on ARS, and there's a title, Ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this by Mary Tabayoyan. And I click it open, and it's all about enforced abortions, which a lot of people know about now, but I didn't know about that. And not only did she have to, I'm pro-choice, so I'm not against abortions, but I'm against someone making you get an abortion. And they made her get on post the next day, and I could not stop crying. I was just like weeping and weeping and weeping. And what am I going to do now? I'm leaving. I've woken up. I can't leave the church. I don't know what to do. And I write Andreas, and I said, Andreas, I can't stop crying. Help me. And he wrote me back, and he said, I'm crying reading your email. I'm really sorry you're having to go through this, but I've got to, because I said, if I leave, I'm going to lose my husband and every friend I have for 30 years. And he goes, I'm crying reading your email. I'm so sorry you're having to go through this, but I've got to ask you this one question. What kind of friends could those be if they're going to leave you because you changed your mind?
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so that was it. The whole Truman Show cracked open for me at that point. That was it. Done.
What an incredible story.
Isn't it?
I followed that. That was the website. And for those who are coming in who are, if anyone's newer to this, so Tory, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the time where you were working with what's called the Office of Special Affairs, or OSA.
I was
volunteering, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. Your job there was to, so that Andre, there was a website, xcnu.net, critical of Scientology. Tory's job was to go on there and basically post and say, hey, this is wrong. You guys are wrong. No,
you're wrong. And that's a misunderstood that a lot of people think. Yachty did that.
Okay.
And even then, he never said this is wrong. He had the 10 accounts where he would distract, get people fighting with each other, and slime the area. That's it.
Okay.
I never posted anything against anybody because I never read anything. I was just making those 4,000 posts way at the end. I mean, after they threw me under the bus, remember I told you I went to the apartment in Glendale, and remember that? And I ran out crying and said, get away from me. That's the night they threw me under the bus. And from that point on, I wasn't talking to Bill like I was before. He wasn't my friend. I didn't consider Osa my friend. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with these guys. I'm going to go with the Cowboys and see if they can help me somehow. And Andreas ended up, but I never posted stuff. The only things I posted were my corny 4,000 posts, which you can still go in the Wayback Machine and look for Miss Magoo 55. And that was me. And you'll see they're just these completely wacko posts with people saying, he's really wacko.
The goal there was, so you were like, it was to spam and kind of like dry, like what was the
you're missing the point. I wasn't with them in June of 2000.
Right.
It's like I had said, I'm not doing your game anymore. No.
Right.
I need help. I realized I need help. Me, Tory. So I never had a goal to spam. I opened up those accounts, and Bill had the goal to spam. But I didn't even know that's what they were doing. I really didn't. Because
I'm interested. It seems to be a common thread about a lack of. I'm interested why he had you open the accounts and then a lack of transparency, like they were always keeping you out of the loop.
Yeah. I had parties for 14 years when I left because I lost all my friends. And everybody that came in would walk in. I'd say, look, it's a potluck, and I'd get them to bring food. They'd bring in the food, and they'd go up to someone and go, okay, I was in this room. You were in that room. What happened in your room? Here's what happened in mine. What happened in yours? That was 14 years of people doing that. And still to this day, now it's been 24 years that I know of. And we still, if we get together, we're still comparing notes on stuff that we didn't know. That's why when you said, oh, you know everything, I'm like, not hard. No.
Yeah, none of us do, I guess. It's just so strange that it's just, I'm interested that they would have you open an account, but someone else would be the one who actually posting all, like, it's just, I don't know. It sounds weird, but I guess that's
it isn't weird because it's an organization where they are doing abusive things, and they knew I'm not going to do that. If they said go on there and slime the area, I'd be like, no, I'm not. They have a right to say what they want to say. They knew that about me, so they got Yachty, who they knew was a gamer. He was a big gamer, and there's this guy that was on at the time. I always forget his name, but he was a comedian. He was on the radio. And he would come on as Joe. And then his boss would come in and say, just shut up, Joe. Nobody cares about that. And I'm listening to this driving along thinking, God, that's kind of rude. And, it's sort of like he had all these different identities. And Bill and my ex-husband would listen to this all the time. They loved this guy. Phil Hendry, that was his name. Phil Hendry.
Oh, yeah. I remember him. Oh.
He was very funny. But he was all those identities. And I think that's where Yachty thought, you know what? I can be the same on the internet and spam this thing and get rid of these people. You see what I mean?
I sure do. That's like we talked about earlier, that happens today. That's what Russia, China, a lot of the countries that are Iran does that. I mean, just any attempt to just get people all distracted, upset.
Right. Fighting with each other.
Right. That's especially Russia. I mean, we thought, not to go off topic, but that was a lot of what they did in 2016 was just like, not even just get them fighting about things that are already simmering underneath the American surface, that are things that are already here.
Exactly. That's what Bill told me. He said, the only thing I can't handle, Tory, is if someone says nothing. And that's something to remember. If you're on the internet, it's like you're in a snarl fest. Just like Jesse used to tell me. Jesse Prince used to run the Church of Scientology with Miscavige. And he left and helped start the Lisa McPherson Trust. And so I would call him when I'd get all flipped out, and he'd say, look, listen to me carefully, step away from the stove. And I had a little sticky note, step away from the stove, for years, because it really helps.
Yeah. That's good advice. And I'm a big believer in like that's a function of the internet now. Like, it's like, if I was to give advice to anybody, if they just saw the internet for the first time, it's like, you don't have to reply to everything. That seems to be like a major problem with people. I've seen it. Okay, I'm going to be honest. This is the only time I'm going to bring this up. But as a journalist and as an observer, not a protester, but an observer of the activists now in anti-Scientology activists, many of whom I admire, but I've noticed, if I was to give advice, it's you don't have to respond to everything. Just do what you do. Like, that's what you do, Tory. You're not involved in all that. You just do it.
Yeah. Because I worked with OSA.
Yeah.
I know their goals. They are thrilled that these guys are fighting with each other. Yeah. It's like, yes. I mean, Yachty, this is a true story. I'm standing next to Bill. I still don't know what he's doing, but he's on the internet. He's typing away. And all of a sudden he goes like this. Bingo. He stands up, lights a cigarette. And I go, bingo, what? And he goes, these guys are going to be fighting for hours, weeks, maybe months. Let's go to dinner. Come on, let's go. That's a true story. That happened. So I always remember that when these guys are like, not that you can't disagree. Obviously, people disagree. But when it's a snarl fest, meaning it goes on and on and on, who's getting the stats for that? OSA. That's it. And I know people go, I don't care about OSA. Really? Then you're in the wrong game. My dad was a professional football player, and he taught me how to play how to play sports and how to compete. And it's like a big part of competing is knowing how to play the game. And you got to know what you're in when you're in this. And I think that's one thing that they go, that's the thing. OSA got that going with some certain people going, who cares about OSA? That's Yachty. Yachty got that going. You just have to think, who would say that? Bill, of course. He started it right when I left. Don't trust Tory. She thinks everything's OSA. That's a Bill Yachty quote. And I started saying that in the beginning. That's a Bill Yachty quote. And they were like, no. People started turning against me right away. And Bob Minton, thank God, bless his soul, he came up and he gave me his laptop. And he said, look, these people don't really know who you are. You've got to start talking. So tell your story. And I sat in their guest room and I thought, okay, what should I talk about? And I put, my first thing was Magoo's worst nightmare. And I talked about epilepsy. And he came on right away. He was as somebody else, some phony Nick, "Dear Magoo, do you really think if we had a ship and we could take 21 people, we would take someone with your awful condition on our ship?" And I sat back and I thought, oh, thank God, because I knew the critics, not all of them, but I knew some of them would tear him to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And Scientologists would never. They would always side with Bill because he was a class 8, OT 7.
Mm-hmm.
So if he said it, it's true, right? But they tore him to pieces. It was really great. And it was the beginning of me feeling like, okay, there's some hope here.
It's so I feel so I don't know, like sad when I hear like that's just how they treated you. It's like makes me very like it really does make me sad. It's just like you got out, but I think about all the other people who are, as I'm sure you do too, who are some who didn't get out. And some who are still in it, and I know that's why you do what you do.
It is, and I always say, I honestly, I wasn't going to speak out, but Scientology from LAX to Tampa, turned me into an activist, and then I started protesting. They started saying things that really pissed me off, and I wrote it up to RTC, and I said, if that lady says that again, I'm going to the media. You just have to know that. So either shut her up about this area, which had to do with my son at the time. And she was like saying really creepy things. And I was like, no, this is my son. He has nothing to do with this. He's not a Scientologist. Leave him alone. And either she leaves him alone or I'm going to the media. And I'm telling you, she left him alone. That was it. I'm a tough chick. It's like I look kind of like Lucille Ball. My mother we used to call her Lucille because she was very smart, just like Lucille Ball, but she could be the corny Lucy. Do you know what I mean? If she needed to. And I'm the same way. I've done the same thing. And it's been a great asset for me all my life.
Moms, there's a through line here. It's actually very interesting. It's your mom protected you and you protected your son. That's a through line right here, as my mom does for me, and every mom does, right. for their children. It's and that was in the end that your mom's love for you was a lot stronger than whenever bullshit what Scientology was throwing out there. Fascinating.
And my grandfather.
And your grandfather.
And my father. My father, I always felt like he was with me. That's why my YouTube site is Tory Magoo 44, because that started in 2008. Anonymous took on the Church of Scientology. And I was like, this is bullshit. And I made this post on ARS. Oh, this isn't anonymous. This is because they were coming out with a book about Tom Cruise. The other side of Tom Cruise or something. I forget the name of it, but it was it's another book that I knew they didn't want people to read. And so I said, this is just bullshit. They're just trying to distract off of Tom Cruise. So then I made that post and Anonymous called me here in my room. And I'm like this, hello? I was like so scared. It was so freaky. And they actually came on the internet and they said, well, no, at first they called me and they said, just get on Skype and we're going to talk to you. And I won't get into what they had planned, but they did have some not good plans. And I said, look, you're way out of your league. These guys will put you in prison. And I'm not kidding. And they did put a couple of anonymous people in prison. And I said, you got to take this seriously. And they go, well, what can we do? And I said, let's do a free protest. A peaceful protest. It's free. It's peaceful. They can't arrest us for it. And they said, okay, we'll meet you at the complex tomorrow. We want to walk around and see if we're going to do it. So I walked around with them and they said, okay, we're going to have 500 people here on February 10th. And I thought, sure. We'd been protesting and I thought, okay, yeah, right. They're going to have 500 people. And again, for people that have heard this story, I know you have, but there might be someone who hasn't. And it's kind of a good story. Do you want me to tell it or not?
Absolutely. No, tell this is your show as much as it is
Okay.
the world's. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Anyway, to me, it really was funny because Mark Bunker made a video to Anonymous, and that really helped too. They called him Wise Beard Man because he said, look, you're going to get us in trouble. That's all that's going to happen. So, be cool, basically. And so I meet with these kids. We go around the block. They say we'll be here on February 10th. So I say to Bunker, let's go on the subway when we can just go straight from my house down to Vermont. Okay, so we get on the subway, and there's 3 rows of Anonymous, in the V for Vendetta mask for people who don't know, and all black, and they're all very peacefully sitting there in 3 rows, and the rest of the subway is like this. They're all like completely freaked out, thinking there's something really bad. And I get on with I have a stop sign that Frank Oliver made for me in 2000 saying, Scientology, stop hurting families. And I get on and I say, ladies and gentlemen, we're with these people. They're okay. We are going to be protesting the Church of Scientology. And they all clap the whole subway. It was really funny. Mm-hmm. So then we get off. We think, all right, this is anonymous. It's 10 people. We get off. We walk up to the complex, which is a couple of blocks. And there's 500 people with picket signs. And that was amazing for me. Because for me, there were only about 4 people on the internet for 8 years who would say their name and their phone number. And I was one of them. And so it felt like I was in a back alley with these guys trying to rape me. And I'm fighting the Church of Scientology, which is the guys trying to rape me, right? And now all of a sudden I walk up and here's 500 people with protest signs, young, strong. And they're like, we're with you. We've got your back. And I was like, oh, thank God. Sure. It was just
must have really, it must have felt
9,000 around the world. They did a huge picket. It was really amazing.
I remember that. That was that 2008 Operation Chanology or something.
Chanology, yeah.
Yeah. And for that, I know probably most people are really familiar with this, but just in case someone comes in, Anonymous is obviously anonymous internet collective that has often taken up causes like like we're talking about here at Scientology and other other types of causes.
Pedophilia, they took those guys on.
And in this case, it was for you as someone who's like you said, at first it was like being alone, and all of a sudden you come out of the subway and there's hundreds of people. That's got to be like some kind of really amazing feeling.
It was amazing. And Mark had brought the webcam, and he goes, this is a webcam from Anonymous. And I said, what am I going to do with that? He goes, well, we're going to start your YouTube site. And I said, what am I going to do with the YouTube site? And he said, well, we're going to make your first video. And it's Tory Magoo has a YouTube site. And I went that day from 0 to 10,000 subscribers. And that's from Anonymous. They did that.
Wow.
Because
if Anonymous is watching
around the world. I was the most talked about, the most spoken about for 6 months, everywhere around the world. Mm-hmm. You name a country, they were talking about me. And I was like, why me? And they were like, you were the only one with a video we liked.
It's just that simple, folks. And if Anonymous is watching, feel free to plug. Well, you already know Tory, of course. Tory, what's your YouTube channel again, just so people know it?
It's Tory Magoo 44.
And absolutely, our channel, of course, is me, Eric LeVay, and we appreciate you guys liking and commenting. And we got 110 people. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
We're multi-streaming this one on YouTube and X, formerly known as Twitter, and Twitch. I like to get the message out there, to as many people as I can.
Now, I should have put it on my YouTube site, but I don't know how.
We could have multi-streamed this. I like StreamYard, but we'll figure it out. Or I think, I don't know. I'll ask if anyone knows how to do that. Put it in the chat. If Tory can, we'll figure that out.
I can now put it on my site. I'm a local badass.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Melissa.
Oh, it's I I have not been able to look at the chat much, but I appreciate you guys. It's yep, Melissa, thank you. I agree with you about Tory. Adam Carmona, Anonymous is never going to give you up. I certainly hope so. Style Audit 1A. Hey, Eric, good to see you again. Catch up from the beginning. Yeah, guys, I know it's hard, especially on the West Coast. A lot of people are at work. This was a good time for Tory and I, but this is wait, I believe they call it the replay crew. So,
the replay crew. Yeah.
Tory, this has been an education for me too. Not just today, but just since. Well, let me actually, because I this was definitely a point I wanted to hit, and I talked about. So, what was your reaction? Well, let me back up for a sec. So, so my good friend, and I filmed the Police LA Streets. He began I know most people watching know this, but just in case you're jumping in, he began a more current incarnation of the protests when an incident, and he's the biggest activist in LA. He's my a cop watcher, as they say. Anyway, so the current incarnation started when there was an incident down on the in front of the Scientology Information Center. My point being, when you saw this incarnation of this protest with the streaming, like what did you think as someone who's been doing this for a while?
Well, it's interesting. Before COVID, once COVID hit, I really had nothing. I wasn't going to talk about Scientology, and I realized I think what happened is a lot of activists online started learning how to put, this is Hemet and this is Eric and different things like that, photographs. I don't know how to do that. I didn't do that. So I thought, all right, I'm done. There's really nothing, I don't know how to do that stuff and nobody will teach me. So that's it. I'm just going to leave it be. And then my friend Andrew, who lives in Hollywood, called me. And he used to work next to the testing center at the Egyptian Theater. So he's kind of his own activist from just being around them so much. And so he called me and he goes, you've got to go to TikTok. And I said, Andrew, I don't do TikTok. And he goes, okay, go to TikTok and type in Jessica Palma-Dessa. And I did. I went to TikTok, typed in Jessica Palma-Dessa, and I went, oh my God. There's this beautiful 23-year-old young girl, and they're like right in her face, of course, with their cameras. And she's like, do you think I'm intimidated by you? I love this. I have 2 million followers on TikTok, and they're all watching you right now. And I'm like, oh my God, they are totally out of their realm. I mean, this is a whole new thing they're not ready for. And that's exactly what happened. And I started looking for them, found them that Saturday night. And with my friend that we used to protest with them, I said, we got to go find these kids. And so we did. They were at the complex. And I said to Jessica, can you come over to my house and teach me how to do this? And she did. She came over and that was it. That was the beginning of me doing the live streams.
Amazing.
And she said, nobody cares about all those photographs and all that shit. Just tell your stories. That's it. So that's what's happened.
And she's right. I mean, and I'm sure you've taught her a lot, and it's like it's a mutual, an exchange of.
Yeah, it's been great. She always says, I'm going to be like Tory when I get to her age. And I always say that she's exactly who I was when I was her age.
Amazing. Yeah. And she's, I believe Jess is from my home state, which is very cool for me. I believe from New Jersey. So very cool. I think she is a great activist and great streamer.
And funny. She's very funny. Yeah.
The sense of humor is not just a key for getting through life, but it's really that's something I was going to bring up before. Was it's very effective in activism as well. William Streets uses that, I think, very effectively, and it's you laugh sometimes. I mean, I
Mr. Anonymous. This is my friend from Norway. Just so you know, I have all these corny things that I do, but my view was start with corn and then move into the heavy stuff. But if you just have only heavy stuff, it's too heavy for a lot of people. And Jessica agrees completely.
I couldn't agree with you more as well. Like, it's like, that's one thing that, it's very, like, getting people, building a movement. Like I've talked about this streets, and I've talked about this a lot. I think we talked about it actually last night. I was with him and our friend Sean, who's a journalist as well, a cat with news. Some of you guys might know him on Twitter as well. And he was on the last live stream that we did on this channel, live from the RNC. Anyway, the point being, enjoyment is something. Some activists are so serious that they, like, I see that now with some of the Palestine protests. It's like, when you want to grow a movement, you want people to come into it. Like I'm not talking about what I think about those, but it's something I've observed. Like you said, like, you want people to come into it, like, and have fun. And then, yes, it's going to be, of course it's serious. It's Scientology, but
right. But you got to have some fun in it. Yeah.
That's what I was going to bring up earlier too. Like because it's a very serious topic, but I just have to be honest. Like I'll tell my story a little bit about maybe how I became aware of this topic as well. But like, I've laughed so hard, and a lot of it was from your friend's website, from the Xenu site. When I discovered that a long time, and I was like, I mean, there's no way to, like, you're in hysterics. I was in hysterics.
Yeah.
My first where I first discovered, I guess, Scientology, for lack of a better phrase, for those who remember, do you remember the exploding volcano commercial that ran?
Of course. I helped get that be number one. I was part of that.
Now I feel like an idiot.
And paid me $1,000 a week part-time from 8 in the morning till 1. And I said, I have to leave at 1 because I'm co-auditing in the afternoon. He said, okay. And again, I just have to tell you this story because this is my Lucille Ball thing, right? I'm very bad with names and numbers. I can't remember. So I called. They said, this guy is really big. We really, really want you to close this guy. He has like millions of viewers. And I said, okay. So I call him up and I say, hey, I'm Tory from Bridge Publications, blah, blah, blah. We want to see if you'll do an interview about Dianetics. And he goes, no. And he hangs up, right? And I said, that didn't work too good. So they said, all right, we'll just keep going. So I'm calling different stations. And back then, the station owners would answer the phone. This was in the 80s. And so now I get to his name again, not recognizing it because I don't remember names. So I call him again and I go, hey, this is Tory from Bridge Publications, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, do you realize you just called me about an hour ago? And I said, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And he hangs up, right? So now it's about 2 hours later and I call him again. And it's the third time I call him. And he goes, you're unbelievable. You have called me 3 times in one day. What is wrong with you? And I said, well, you know what, pal? Maybe it's karma. Maybe you really need to do an interview about Dianetics. And he goes, all right, if it'll get you to stop calling me, I'll do the interview. And I'm telling you, we set it up and they cheered and gave me books and balloons and all kinds of stuff. They were so excited that they got that account. It was really funny. But that was from my Lucille Ball, just like, I don't know, whatever, just using whatever I can. You know what I mean? Because I can't remember things. So it's like, all right, I'm sorry. I called you 3 times, but
it worked.
Made lemons into lemonade.
I don't know. You seem to remember things pretty sharply, in my opinion.
No, I do. I'm just saying names and numbers. I'm really.
Tell me about your involvement with the commercial again, because I'm really interested in that. The exploding volcano. You mentioned your role in pushing that famous commercial.
They hired me and about 4 other people to get Dianetics to number 1.
Okay.
That was the goal. Okay. And it was with the exploding volcano. But we did these interviews with different celebrities in Scientology, and we set them up. We got them to do the interviews. And their goal was to have people go into a bookstore, buy Dianetics. That was it. I know, but wait until you hear what happened. Now we do all the radio stations in America. Now we go on to self-analysis, which was also in the bookstores. And now we're done. That's it. We've done every radio station. We got Dianetics and self-analysis. That's it. And the lady running it, Sharon Runyon, goes, oh my God, we're toasted. We don't have Dianetics to number one, and there's nothing else we can do. We don't have any other books in a bookstore. And I go, well, let me just think about it. So I go home and I come back and I go, okay, I've got it. And she goes, what? And I go, we're going to do a series, a 4-part series on Dianetics. And she goes, Tory, no one is going to do a 4-part series on Dianetics. It's just not going to happen. And I said, okay, well, let me just give it a shot. And I called this guy in Tennessee, who was just a really nice guy. And I call him up and I said, this is a really popular thing in the United States. And I think your station, it might be good. And he goes, what is it? And I said, it's called Dianetics. It's a 4-part series on Dianetics. And I had these different titles, like how to handle your kids with Dianetics. If you're sick, how Dianetics can fix you, just different things. But they were clever. My husband helped me come up with the titles. And so I bring it, we call him up and he goes, okay, I'll call it L. Ron Hubbard month. And that was it. That was the beginning of what really turned it into number one. Because now we just did series after series after series after series on Dianetics until it became number one. And then they fired us. They said, we don't need you anymore. The Sea Org's going to take over. You're done. And we went, okay. So we all went and got other jobs. And now Sharon Runyon calls us and goes, there's a mandatory meeting, come back. And we have the meeting and she goes, we need you guys to come back. The stats have crashed. And we all went, no. Because we knew they're just going to do the same thing again. No, you're on your own. You fired us. That's it.
That's very interesting to me. And I know you said you talked about having it's just very interesting to me that several of the accounts that you've told us about your time in Scientology involved you really pushing back. And that's just not something we hear much of. That's what's so interesting to me. More than once, you really stood up for yourself and were like, no. And I don't know. I just find that fascinating.
That's because of epilepsy. I swear to God. I mean, it's like you can always take a negative and turn it into a positive. And it's like truly that whole ability came from them talking to me like I was a degraded being and me having to stand up for myself. And it's like, you know what? After a while, it becomes a skill. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it was just one of those things where it's like, no, I'm not going to take your shit. No, we're not going back to work for you. You already screwed us over. Screw me once, you're bad. Screw me twice, my bad. It's like, no, we're not going to do it. No, that's it. But I did. There's many, many times when I look back on stuff that I did in Scientology that nobody else would do, including my son. I mean, the first kid hung himself and killed himself. I know 17 young people who've killed themselves who are Scientologists. Oh my God. So if you're listening to this and you're a Scientologist, do not take your life. I'm serious. I mean it. Call me, get out, and you'll be fine. But I know 17 kids who didn't get out and they're dead. And the first one hung himself and his mother found him in the garage. And I took my son to SeaWorld. And I said, look, something really awful has happened and I need to tell you about it. And he said, okay. And I said, so-and-so, one of the Kasowitz kids killed himself. And he said, oh, okay. And I said, so you have to know, if you're going to kill yourself, it's not going to be one death. It's going to be 2, because I'll be dead 5 minutes later. And he said, don't worry, Mom, it's not in the cards, which was so great for me to hear. And then I said, okay, have a seat. And he sat down and I said, look, if you don't want to do Scientology, you just tell me and that's it. I don't want you to feel like you have to take your life to get out of Scientology. Now, that's monumental in cults for someone to say to their child, you don't have to do it if you don't want. And he said, I don't want to do it. And I said, all right, then that's it. But just don't tell anybody because they'll have to disconnect from you until you're actually out, because he was in high school. And so he was done. That was it. He was done before me. He was out before me. I was still trying to be the true believer.
Wow.
But see how dramatic that is? I mean, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it really is. And
you get
I wish
that
I had
or not?
Oh, I get it. Yeah. No,
okay.
I was just thinking that I wish I had some or prepared. If anyone has some in case someone is watching this, whether in Scientology or just someone who is I don't know, depressed or thinking about suicide, I would like to share some resources, or if Tory, you have any resources that you think would help, I would love to share
Well,
those
number
here.
one, for a lot of people, because this was the thing the critics did, but I noticed the live streamers don't. The critics took Scientology very seriously, and they wanted to be educated on it. They wanted to know both sides. And so they learned Xenu.net. They went there and they studied it and they learned it. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, Mark Bunker and I would go give a speech and I would always end up not knowing something. And I would say, what is it? And he'd say, it's this. He knew the answer to it because they would spend time learning these things. But it's very important. And it's also important for understanding, because people say it all the time, how could this happen? Go onto YouTube, type in mind control and cults and learn about it. Because like I was saying, and I never finished it, but I wanted to finish it. The cult experts flew in and said, you're the most happy person we've ever seen leave a cult, right? Because I've been reading the 10 books for 10 years on stuff. And so I'd woken up. But they said, look, one of the biggest misunderstandings about cults is people think they're stupid. People who join cults must be stupid. And they said, the truth is, we've interviewed thousands of people that are from all various different cults. And most of them, many, many, many of them are very high IQ. They're very smart. That's why they got in the cult, because it was something more, it was something different, it was something better. And that has helped me a lot. It really has.
I couldn't agree more. And in fact, I was gonna, echo that as well. It is. I've seen that in like as someone who investigates disinformation. I mean, anybody. It is not about. Anyone can be in that situation. Nobody is.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Right.
Anyone can get suckered into a cult if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, no matter their income, IQ, whatever. It just, and Scientology, I always tell people, they're good at what they do. They are. They're after, I really want to make this point, they're after African Americans, Hispanics, Latino, Latina, anybody from any other country, because they've pretty much already milked through this country, and we're kind of like, nah, yeah, I did have L. Ron Hubbard's street name renamed. They wanted, somebody mentioned that. I did. I went down there and said, what's the difference? It's one block. It'll keep it contained. Let's name it L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
When? And they did. They said, okay. But some people are like, I can't believe you did that. Well, you have to be in the Truman Show. If you're in the Truman Show, you understand it. And if you haven't seen the Truman Show, watch it.
Great movie. Great movie. Love the scene where his wife's just doing the commercial and he's like, why are you talking like that? And she's like, use this like cleaner or whatever. And he's like, what are you doing?
My favorite scene in that is when they go down to the beach. He's waking up and he says, I want to meet that certain girl that he wanted to meet at the beach. And they go there and she goes, look, they're going to come over this hill in a minute. You got to get out of here. They're really much worse than you think. And he goes, no, it's going to be fine. And all of a sudden you see the lights come over the hill. And I love that because that's so Scientology. It's so OSA.
Yeah. You won in the end. There's a few things I've taken away from this conversation that I'll maybe echo at the end, but that's the main thing is like, you look at you and look at what we're doing. And then look at Scientology now. I mean, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
I don't know what membership is, but
yeah. And that's my thing is like, no matter what you're in, if you're having a hard time, just keep going. Don't, keep going. And like you said earlier, and I didn't emphasize it enough, but I meant to, it's like, keep doing what you do best rather than fighting with each other, because it's not that you're wrong. It's not. It's just, it doesn't help them because they don't agree with you. and it doesn't help anybody out here. So what does help us is if you just keep doing what you do best. And if you do that, it's going to help everybody, including you, because it's very healing to actually do what you do best.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about. It's like I can be critical at times of everything with, face it, but like I over and over again, that's been an observation I've seen with this particular protest and other ones, not just this one, but many left-wing movements that I've covered as a reporter. And I'm just like, why are you arguing when there's an actual goal here? What, like, your enemies want you to, that's in like every law of power book. Your enemies want you to fight, right? They want you to fight.
Right. Right.
We're stronger together.
It's their number one goal. Well, number
right.
two goal,
Mm-hmm.
but it works with distraction. So it's very helpful for them.
Absolutely. I guess I was going to say like with the volcano thing, just if you like, I'll just say like briefly my story that I have such this distinct memory of, I saw that commercial because it would always play. I remember it would play on Saturdays or something. I guess I wasn't, I was just at home. It's like that commercial was very impressive to like this exploding volcano. I'm just, I'm a kid or whatever. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. A little time later, I remember I asked my parents about it. I'm like, what's this? And I forget the conversation, but a little later, I'm in the Walden Books in New Jersey. It was in I think it was in the Willowbrook Mall, for those who are anyone's from that area. Dianetics is on the shelf. I was pretty young. I remember I read like a lot of books as a kid. So I pulled it off the shelf, opened it up. My memory is just, I was like, after reading 3 sentences, I put it away. I just did not understand it. And that was that. Until I discovered that was it.
Good for you.
Maybe I wasn't. I guess I don't know. I'm really curious. I just did not get it. I was like, what? I guess I don't know. I put it. Just that's what you do in a bookstore. You're browsing. You put it away. And then years later, I discovered your good friend's website, and that's when. And then later, I reported on the. As a reporter on the loans that they got during COVID. And that was my first time actually reporting on Scientology. And if you guys are watching the stream, in my profile, there are links to those stories we broke at Daily Dot about the Paycheck Protection Program. And we wrote a 3-part series about these loans that were designed to cover, to help companies and other organizations. And that was a lot of fun reporting on that.
That's so important that you did that too, because it's.
Thanks.
I mean, like you said, it went viral.
It did. It got. No, I'm sorry. What were you saying there?
No, just your article went viral.
It did. Yeah, I remember. I think Daily Mail, one of these huge tabloids, picked it up, and it was like, oh, like that's. I was like, wow, that was. Well, I thank ProPublica actually for I'll just say when the government released that data, they I'm sure it was intentional. They made it impossible to read. That was sometime during the Trump administration. But every governments don't, no matter who's in charge, a lot of times they don't want the truth to come out, obviously. So thank God they released it in this spreadsheet, which you couldn't, very hard to read. But ProPublica created a website where you could which is still up, where you could look to see who got the money. And so that's how we were able to really write this story, was because of this website.
Right.
And like I was telling you before we started, we ended up tracing over, I think, $10 million went through almost 100 different entities that are really run by Scientology. That was our series.
Wow.
So thanks for indulging me on that. Is follow.
Well, just so people know how weird they are, on my side, during the I think it was during the Fishman trials, and I don't really know much about it. I, to this day, haven't read it. But anyway, he was taking on the church, and they didn't want anybody to read. No, I think it was the Wallerstein trial, and I was in the trial. I made sure to get in the courtroom And I stood up twice during the courtroom and spoke.
Wow.
I know. It was like that's one of those things where it was just like, Your Honor, no. It was just amazing. But anyway, they asked me to go sit on the transcripts for 8 hours. And I did. We had to check them out at 8 in the morning and sit on them all day to make sure nobody could get in them, because the word XENU was in those things, and they didn't want anybody to see it. And I did it for one day, and then I said, no, I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm sure they got other people. Same thing with the IRS. People say we need to get the IRS handled. Well, this is what they did. They said, okay, Tory, we want you to go down and pass these flyers out. And it was, we'll give anyone $10,000 if you'll give us secrets about the IRS. So I'm telling you, I'm downtown passing out these flyers. And they're mostly men, and they're all like ready to kill me. They're really black, and I don't mean like black, like African American. I mean like dark spiritually. They're like really angry. So finally I found these two ladies, and they took them, and they said, well, we might have some information for you. So I thought, okay, my job's done. I went back. I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. It was really scary. But I'm sure they just kept getting other people to do it until finally Miscavige had the war is over and, handled the IRS.
The war is over. Yes, I've seen that one many times. That
yeah.
You were you at that event, or were you out by then?
I was at that event.
Wow. Were you?
Excuse me.
Oh no, please. I have all this water here. It's off screen, but I always. Let me ask you something. Did you feel like the war was over for you at that moment, or what? Like he says it like it's over for everyone.
No, you're kind of in it until you wake up, and it really is like you're in the Truman Show. They're making sure that everything, just like in the Truman Show, everyone you see, everyone you hear is part of this show, right? And even those people in the show don't know they're in the show, which is what's really weird. There's only a few people that really know it's a show, but the rest of them are just wearing they're being jobs. It's like, Eric, oh, thank God you joined. You'd be perfect. You can be our journalist. You can write in our Freedom magazine. Would you do that?
No.
I know. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay, I'll do it. That's how they are with every person. Oh, my God. I had this one guy. I was out on Hollywood Boulevard, and this black guy was looking really bummed out. And this lady was talking to him. And it was a Scientology center. And so I said, can I talk to you for a minute? And he said, yeah, sure. And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, I'm thinking about joining the Sea Org. And I said, really? This is when I'm out. And I said, do you realize, I said, I don't mean to be offensive to you, but I'm pretty sure in your genetic line somewhere, someone was in a slave camp. Am I right or wrong? And he said, you're right. And I said, okay, that is what you're joining. When you join the Sea Org, it is a slave camp. It is. You can go online and read all the stories of ex-Sea Org members and how awful it was, having to clean the floor with a toothbrush, just disgusting stuff that Miscavige got into. And I never answered that. Where did it change? But I have to get back to that. But anyway, point being, I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to be a teacher. And I said, all right, then here's the deal. You haul ass down the street. I will make sure this lady doesn't come after you. And don't ever come back here. Because you can see these white chicks, they know what they're doing. And it's not a good thing. And he hauled ass down the street. It was great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow. And that was in front of the test center, the information?
No, it was a different place they had at the time.
I guess I always think of the test center because of the current protests. But
right.
They own so much real estate.
I know, but nobody's in it. That's the key thing. People always say, wow, they're really expanding. And I say, really? And that's based on what? And they go, well, look at all the buildings they own. And I go, have you ever looked in their buildings? And they go, no. And I said, okay, well, next time go look in them, because there's about this many people in them.
Yeah. The finances and I know there's a channel, I believe it's Jeffrey Augustine does the Scientology Money Project.
Money Project, yeah.
Great name for a YouTube. When I saw that, I was like, what a great name for a channel.
Yeah.
And just that's
especially having to do with Scientology, because they're fishy.
Yeah, I remember when I was writing those stories, just to say again, like I think I DM'd Aaron Smith Levin, who runs that great channel, as I know you've been on growing up in Scientology, and I was just curious, and I was like, so because those loans were designed for people to get paychecks, and I was like, maybe you can comment on this, like, you get a paycheck in a Sea Org? What is the paycheck? Like, I'm still confused about that. Like, you're working. I know you're. I'm just really curious if you could maybe provide insight. How does that work?
I can.
Yeah,
okay, so two things. One is if you're in the Sea Org, yes, you get, I think, a check, because I was in the Sea Org. And it's, when I was in it, it was $35 a week. Okay. I think it's now up to $55. But it's still, you're working 24/7. It's slave labor for $55 a week. So that's it on that. And the other part of it is people like me, they hired me and they said, we're going to pay you $1,000 if you can help us get Dianetics to #1. And I said, $1,000? I knew the Sea Org were getting $35 a week. And I said, how can you be paying me $1,000? And they had a piece of paper with a thing written by Hubbard saying, if we need professionals in a certain area and we don't have anyone that can do it, like Eric, then we can hire someone and pay them the going rate. So they said, we'll pay you $1,000 a week. And I went, all right, you're on.
Wow.
So I'm working next to people making $35 a week.
Yeah.
It was very weird. It was very weird for me.
Yeah, amazing how they found the money. I guess the folks making the 35 probably never knew that. They didn't know that you were making $1,000.
That I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I wonder. Sometimes even little things like that can trigger someone into leaving an organization or a company when they find out, like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, I don't think they did. Remember, we hardly saw anybody. The only people we saw were in the office, which was Sharon Runyon and one other lady. The rest of us were just public who were getting paid $1,000. We never saw the rest of the Sea Org. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I guess let me take a quick look. If anyone has, I know I've been going for a long time, so we can see if anybody has. I apologize if you posted any questions earlier. I didn't see them just because I wanted to very much be hearing Tory. If you have any questions, I'm going to read a few comments. Let's see. I Pink Girl said, I think this is in reference to my story about seeing Dianetics. I was 16 and bought it from a B. Dalton. Oh, wow. I remember that story. My mom was terrified. She said she didn't understand. So I had the same reaction. I was like,
it's a very common reaction. I used to put on Book One seminars, which is Dianetics, and nobody understood it. Even highly trained auditors didn't understand it. I'm serious. I'd say, you're a class 8 auditor. How can you, because they were like, oh, we have to really clear this word. And I'd say, look, you know what the reactive mind is. Come on, move along. This is a 2-day seminar. And these other people that know nothing are moving through it. But it's a very common thing where people go, it's too weird.
Yeah. It almost like, I'm just speculating, postulating, whatever word, almost like the person who wrote it might have been on some narcotics or something while he was working on it. Right. That's just me guessing.
I know. I got really mad when I left and I found out he was popping pills all the time, because he made me get off my medicine for epilepsy, and it was awful. And other people, I finally took on the whole Flag land base, because it was like, it was they weren't going to let me on to, my mother-in-law gave us OT 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 for our inheritance, but they weren't going to let me on it. And this young kid said, no, you're not allowed on the flag land base, which I later found out. Why did that happen? Because this person had killed himself. And so they said, okay, we're not letting her on.
Yeah.
So that's when I said, all right, bring me the director of processing. And I said, look, I've been volunteering with these people for years. And it's like, for you to say I'm not allowed on here, what the fuck? And she said, all right, write up what you've done. And I wrote up all this stuff. And she said, okay, you're on. But then they still wanted me to get off my medicine. And Bill Yachty was my auditor. And he's like, Tory, now we're going to sec check epilepsy. And you use these cans to audit. And I took the cans and I set them over there's like a little, I don't know what you call it, a shield. And I set it on his side. And I said, you and the CSs can sec check up epilepsy. I'm done. Mm-hmm. And sec checking is just finding your evil deeds. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. So
I feel like they were being kind of evil. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, they were. They were really creepy. And so it was like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm done. And I want my folders to go up to Ray Midoff, who at the time was the top CS on the planet. And I said, he knows my case. I want it to go to Ray. I'm not talking to anybody else. And so all the CSs I flagged freaked out because it was like, now their asses were on the line, right? Because I said, show me in writing where L. Ron Hubbard says I have to get off my medicine. And they couldn't find anything except even on the upper OT levels, a person should be on medication. But they had changed OT 1 through 7 to be pre-OT levels. OT 8 was the first OT level now. So I said, look, if you want to make it that way, everyone from 1 to 7 is talking about physical gains that they're getting. And I need to handle epilepsy. So now, I think you have a misunderstood on what Hubbard was talking about. And I want the guys up at the top to figure it out. So my husband said, go to Orlando, just get out of here. Because they were all like, oh, your postulates are wrong. You're just not, you have bad intentions, and stuff like that. So my husband said, just get out of here and I'll call you when it's ready. He called me. I came back. The head of flag called me and said, look, we want to apologize. We were wrong. And the senior CS has written a bulletin on medicine saying if you need medication and you've tried to get off of it and it didn't work, and your doctor says it's okay to be on medication, you're okay to get auditing. So that changed everything for a lot of people with medical conditions.
Just to get to that level though, and I like how they kind of qualified it, which is it's sad and comical to me that they were like, well, if you tried to just not take this and it didn't work, it's like, did we really have to even go to that level? Like, it's
right.
Like, I have to,
exactly.
Like you talked about, you said your grandfather was a doctor, right?
Right.
Yes, mine was too. And my father is a doctor as well. He's retired now. And I can only imagine what he's gonna, I think actually I brought that up to him about when I was talking about how I was going to interview you. And I can only imagine what he's going to say about what they told you to do.
Oh yeah. He'll probably that'll be cool.
Yeah. I'm going to, And well, I noticed over the years well, it's a conversation for another time, but it is truly amazing to me that they try to get you to stop taking a medication that is so vital to you living
I know.
Well, Tory, do you have any final thoughts? Something that you want people to take away from this? You've been really generous with your time, and I want you to give you the final floor to. Oh, and one more time, subscribe to Tory's YouTube, which is Tory. What is the link again?
Tory Magoo 44.
Thank you.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah.
And actually, I have it right here. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat so we make sure that.
Yeah, Tory Magoo 44. And the last words I have is just try to. Life goes by very fast. I'm 77 years old. So life really zips by. And luckily, I've spent a lot of my life enjoying my life, because my mother, when I woke up as a little kid, she would say, "All right, what's your day going to be like?" And at first I'd say, "What do you mean?" And she'd say, "Well, you can either have a good day or a bad day. And that's up to you. You can decide it right now and decide which way you want to have it." And that's been with me all my life. It's like, do I want to have a good day or a bad day? And I know people are like, "Well, I have depression and I can't do that." And I'm like, okay, I get it. I lived with a person that had very severe depression for a while. And it's like, but there's a lot of stuff you can do. He gardened, he learned how to do craft, build, and he built all kinds of beautiful things. And all of that stuff helps, in doing something. But if you can't just decide and have a good day, go do stuff. Don't just sit and feeling shitty, because life is too short, and you are valuable. That's the thing. Every voice counts. People think, well, I'm not good enough. These other people have 1 million subscribers and I have nothing. No, fuck that. Start your YouTube site. If you have any topic where you think, I have a passion for this, start a YouTube site on it. You'll be surprised. I try to tell my brother, he's a DJ. He has people that are listening to him around the world. His name is Chicago Dave, right? And his website is 1,200 micrograms. But, he's going to a huge concert right now in Hungary. And it's just like he has fans around the world, but he won't start a YouTube site. And I'm like, start a YouTube site, for God's sakes. It's like, do something that helps you help other people. Because that was my view. I was like, I'm not going to speak out. I'm leaving. But by the time I went from LAX to Tampa, I thought, you know what? If I can help one kid not get suckered into this shit, it's worth it. All the stuff I knew they were going to do about me, which we haven't talked about, all the fair game stuff, which they do a lot of. And you have to be willing to take that. And if you're not, don't get in it. But if you are, just so everyone knows, they mostly do gaslighting. And gaslighting is like nickel and dime shit. They don't want to do anything where you can call the police. Because if you call the police, now they're in it. Do you see what I mean? So unless they have like the LAPD where they're in with them, that's a whole different thing. But that took years to get them kind of in on their side. And as Street says, because I thought they were paying them physically. And he said, no, they just donate so much money to Scientology. They feel like they owe them something.
Yeah. And I'd love to do a follow-up where we talk more about, I almost brought that up earlier, just about, what you experienced when you got out. And we talked about fair game and, we'll address the LAPD thing is very, important to talk about as well. A lifetime of conversations about this. I gotta say, there's just something we could just talk forever about this.
Well, we'll do a part 2.
Yeah, and a part 3.
But until we're done. But let's do a part 2 on fair game.
Yeah. And if people also, so if you guys can, as always, like, comment, subscribe. If you can share this stream, I'll put a link in here. Lastly, where is it? Oh, the chat, right? If you guys want to support our channel as well, help us make more of these videos. Whatever you can do is helpful. Watching is the most important thing, but I want to build this thing up, and my ambition is not small. So maybe the one thing I have in common with, I'm gonna leave those jokes aside, but I have big dreams. So I want to thank you again for coming on, Tory, and
thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you do. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, and I the last thing I guess maybe I'll say about this is, so I really worked in the entertainment industry like a lot of people in LA, and around the 2015-16 time, I became extremely angry. I was angry all the time about what I was seeing happening in this country, and it moved my life I never did any journalism before that. It moved my life in a very, totally different direction.
What year?
So 2016, around the when Trump won, the election.
Wow.
It was yeah. I mean, I guess I might have mentioned this on another stream here and there, but I really had nothing to do with this stuff, and it was kind of eating me up a little bit, and so, and I my how I got into journalism is it was an accident, which is a longer story, but it was a
Wow.
combination of anger and writing. Yeah, and my life hasn't been the same either.
Wow. Well, I think I should interview you after
I would.
this. Let's say goodbye, and then I can interview you.
I would love to. I'd love to be the guest, Tory. You know that.
I know that would be great.
Absolutely. Let's just do it right now. No, I'm tired.
I don't know how. I'm ready to do it right now. I just don't know how. I don't know how to do this screen thing. If you can teach me that, I've been trying to learn that for 4 years. If you can teach me that, we can do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. We can. Do you use StreamYard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
I can either I'll show you how to do it. It'll be awesome, and then we'll flip it. And
let's do it, and then I'll interview you. I really want to hear your story. I do.
Oh, I can't wait. All right, folks. Well, I hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday, and be well, everybody. Okay.
Be well.
Take care.